Shalom, Israel. This is Will and Larry with For Israel. The last part of our series that is titled Misunderstanding of Scriptures that Seem to Disrespect Women will be dealing with some scriptures from the Apocrypha. We have a playlist of videos that deal with proving the validity of the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha is a valid part of the Bible. We are going to make a point about the validity of the Apocrypha and move on to the lesson. Please read Colossians chapter 2, verse 8.
Colossians chapter 2, verse 8. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ.
If the Apocrypha completely lines up with the Old and New Testaments of the Bible, but what people say doesn't line up with both Testaments, who is really being spoiled with philosophy and vain deceit? We have the correct understanding on magic, suicide, sorcery, alms delivering from death, praying for the dead, and many other scriptures from the Apocrypha that people take out of context. Our ongoing series clears up those misunderstandings. We are about to clear up more misunderstandings right now. This video will be added to our playlist that is titled Proving the Validity of the Apocrypha. Let's deal with some scriptures about women from the Apocrypha that are taken out of context. If you don't have an Apocrypha, you can look up the scriptures online to follow along with us. Please read Sirach chapter 22, verse 3.
Sirach 22 and 3. An evil-nurtured man is the dishonor of his father that begat him, and a foolish daughter is born to his loss.
The verse is saying that an evil-nurtured son is the same as an evil-nurtured daughter. Dishonor and loss in this verse mean the same thing. Sirach chapter 22, verse 10 says the same thing, but uses the term children instead of son and daughter. Please read the verse.
Sirach 22 and 10. But children, being haughty, through disdain and want of nurture, do stain the nobility of their kindred.
Let's read Sirach chapter 22, verse 4 to get more understanding of Sirach chapter 22, verse 3.
Sirach 22 and 4. A wise daughter shall bring an inheritance to her husband, but she that liveth dishonestly is her father's heaviness.
The first part of this verse proves that not all daughters are born to a loss. The daughters that are evil nurtured are born to a loss. The words, but she that liveth dishonestly is her father's heaviness, in Sirach chapter 22, verse 4, mean the same thing as the words, and a foolish daughter is born to his loss, in Sirach chapter 22, verse 3. Verse 5 of Sirach chapter 22 reaffirms the meaning of a daughter that is born to her father's loss. Please read the verse.
Sirach 22 and 5. She that is bold dishonoreth both her father and her husband, but they both shall despise her.
Evil nurtured, loss, dishonor, and bold all are referring to sin. There are some righteous daughters and some wicked daughters. Let's move on to Sirach chapter 25. I'm going to make a point before we continue. The scriptures that we are about to read are literally talking about women, but also are talking about some men and women living righteously and others living abominably.
Sirach 25 and 13. Give me any plague but the plague of the heart, and any wickedness but the wickedness of a woman. Verse 17. The wickedness of a woman changes her face and darkeneth her countenance like sackcloth. Verse 19. All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her.
Verse 13 is talking about judgment. Verses 14 and 15 say the same thing, but use different words. Let's read both verses.
Sirach 25 and 14. And any affliction but the affliction from them that hate me, and any revenge but the revenge of the enemies. Sirach 25 and 15. There is no head above the head of a serpent, and there is no wrath above the wrath of an enemy.
Let's get some precepts from the Old Testament to further validate the point.
2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 13. So Gad came to David and told him and said unto him, Shall 7 years of famine come unto thee in thy land, or wilt thou flee 3 months before thine enemies, while they pursue thee, or that there be 3 days pestilence in the land? Now advise and see what answer I shall return to him that sent me. And David said unto Gad, I am in a great strait. Let us fall now into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are great, and let me not fall into the hand of man.
Verse 17 of Sirach chapter 25 is only talking about a wicked woman. Please read the precepts that talk about the face of a good woman in a positive context to prove the point.
Sirach 26, verse 16. As the sun when it ariseth in the high heaven, so is the beauty of a good wife in the ordering of her house. Verse 17. As the clear light is upon the holy candlestick, so is the beauty of the face in ripe age.
Let's deal with Sirach chapter 25, verse 19. Please read it again.
Sirach 25 and 19. All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her.
This verse is only talking about women that don't keep the commandments. Let's prove it with a precept. Sirach chapter 25, verse 19 mentioned that the portion of a sinner shall fall upon her. Sirach chapter 26, verse 3 and verse 23 revealed the meaning of a good portion. Please read both precepts.
Sirach 26, verse 3. A good wife is a good portion, which shall be given into the portion of them that fear the Lord. Verse 23. A wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man, but a godly woman is given to him that feareth the Lord.
Some people find offense of Sirach chapter 25, verse 20, because it says that a woman shouldn't talk a lot. This same verse mentions a man being quiet. Both of them are supposed to be quiet. Remember 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 10 through 12. We're going to investigate one more scripture before we end this lesson. Please read Sirach chapter 25, verse 24.
Sirach 25, verse 24. Of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die.
Yes, Eve is the first named person in the Bible that did sin, and she did influence Adam to sin too. Let's confirm it.
Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat.
This doesn't mean that every woman is bad. We've proven this point already. Woman in this verse is also referring to philosophies. We've explained what philosophies mean too. Let's take a closer look at the term beginning of sin. Please read Sirach chapter 10, verses 12 and 13.
Sirach chapter 10, verse 12. The beginning of pride is when one departeth from God, and his heart is turned away from his Maker. For pride is the beginning of sin, and he that hath it shall pour out abomination. And therefore the Lord brought upon them strange calamities, and overthrew them utterly.
This proves that Sirach chapter 25, verse 24 means that if a person gives into their temptations, they will sin and possibly not receive salvation. Let's read some scriptures from the New Testament to further prove this point.
James chapter 1, verse 14. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust has conceived, it bringeth forth sin. When it is finished, bringeth forth death.
There are more scriptures about women that not only the Apocrypha, but the Old and New Testaments mention in a way that brings confusion to some people. Do you know why the scriptures bring confusion? Now we know that God is not the author of confusion, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33. These scriptures bring confusion because some people rely on their own philosophies to try to get understanding of the Bible. We must use the scriptures to explain scriptures.
Isaiah 28, verse 9. Whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. Verse 10. For precept must be upon precept, line upon line upon line, here a little and there a little.
This is the end of the lesson about clearing up misconceptions about how women are viewed in the Bible. We hope that this content can improve male and female relationships. If you like this content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't like this content, please let us know so we can improve. We have a lot of content about women in the scriptures that we can continue to share with you all.
Sirach chapter 33, verse 17. Consider that I labored not for myself only, but for all them that seek learning. Shalom.